So there's Arlen, and here's the video.
This morning, here is the warning, the new warning from President Biden about Donald Trump.
What's next for America?
Is this on his official account? Wow. A unified Reich? That's Hitler's language. That's not America's. He cares about holding on to power. I care about you.
All right, so that must be pretty bad, Arlen, if he's talking about the Third Reich, if Hitler is, and obviously Biden's using that to, campaign, and rightly so. I mean, we all remember the ad. Well, actually, I don't remember. I've seen it, but you might remember. Do you remember the Barry Goldwater ad where the little girl is pulling the flower and then she there's a nuclear holocaust? So that worked well for LBJ. Obviously that's upsetting. Let's get to the tweet here. So this is from Republicans Against Trump, and I'm not sure they're a real thing. Are they a grassroots, or are they AstroTurf? Because are they really Republicans, or were these people? There are Republicans like Nicole Wallace, who clearly has rejected Trump altogether. Joe Scarborough, a Republican as well.
There's quite a few, yeah.
And Liz Cheney. So here's from Republicans Against Trump. A video posted to Donald Trump's account on his social media network includes references to a unified Reich. I did not see this coming. So that's pretty bad, Arlen. I mean, obviously we don't want a president who is all in for Nazis.
They took that down pretty fast, Hal. But there's a lot of relationship between the MAGA forces and the fascism, really, in a lot of ways. Let me just read you a quote from that Time magazine interview. Trump has sought to recast an insurrectionist riot as an act of patriotism. He's talking about the January 6th event. I call them the J6 patriots, he says. When I asked whether he would consider pardoning every one of them, he says, yes, absolutely.
Wait, say that again, Arlen. I'm sorry, I missed that. What was
saying? He's saying the January 6th crowd, the rioters, were patriots, and he's going to pardon every one of them. That's what he would like to do. Then here's another one. His influence American democracy would extend far beyond pardoning powers. Allies are laying the groundwork to restructure the presidency in line with a doctrine called the unitary executive theory, which hold that many of the constraints imposed on the White House by the legislature and the courts should be swept away in favor of a more powerful commander-in-chief.
Well, that theory came from the George W. Bush administration, actually. It wasn't Trump. The unified executive was something that I think it was may have been Samuel Alito, I'm not sure, who was a huge progenitor, a huge supporter of it. So not really, I'm not saying Trump would disagree. They certainly like the unified executive, but that was to defend the whole thing about torture, and that anything the government, the executive does is okay because of separation of powers. No one can tell the executive what he can or can't do. And the executive branch itself is the will of the executive. So nothing can, you can't hold them responsible. That theory, though, was first employed, as I understand it, to justify torture at Abu Ghraib and other really awful things that happened during the W administration. Let's play this video, though. I want to show this. So here's this is what was on social media, and as you point out, put down quickly, pulled quickly because of the unified Reich reference. So I'm going to actually let's make it the whole deck if I can, because I don't want to have the whole video, because I don't want to have I want it to be very big so you can see it. So the big concern, Arlen, or at least the alleged purported concern, is the reference to the unified Reich. So watch this closely and see if you can just say stop when you see the reference if you want, Arlen, but otherwise I'll play it through.
What's next for America? The economy booms. American energy is unleashed, and an end to crushing taxes. The border is closed, and the largest deportation in history is underway. No more wars as we focus on home. Law and order is restored. The American dream is back, and the best is yet to come. Make America great again. What happens after Donald Trump wins? What's next for America?
And I didn't see it. I watched it several times. I couldn't find it, but I'll show it in a moment where it is in a minute. But did you see it? Did you? Because you can see it if you look closely, the unified Reich.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure it was there. I mean, that went too fast for me to find it, but you know, when they found it, they eventually took it off because they realized.
Right. So I think to make as big a deal as the left or as CNN and others are making about this, let me just play the one where you can actually see it, because I'm kind of proud of myself. I worked hard to put the spotlight in there. We'll see if folks can get it this time. We'll see if we can. So let's start this one more time. I'll show the whole deck, but I think what the point is this is grasping at straws if you're the Democrats. And as you said, they pulled it down. We'll play more from CNN, but come on, man, talk about the policies. He has some really bad policies he mentions in this. Why are you focusing on something that no one can see? Watch this, Arlen.
What happens after Donald Trump wins? What's next for America? The economy booms.
I must have played the wrong video. It says with spotlight. Why don't I see the spotlight? Did you see that? Should have shown the spotlight. Well, I guess I messed that up somehow, Arlen. This is not good radio at all, or TV either. Well, it would be better on radio because you wouldn't see it.
Oh, I was going to tell you something, Hal. I don't know if you know.
There it is. So you can see it right there. Well, it's right in the middle under MAGA, Unified Reich. You can see it. It's very, very hard to see, and it disappears very quickly. But again, his policies are bad. He talks about, closing the borders. That's not a good thing. I don't care how much you brag about it. I understand why people want him to close the borders. I get it. But it's not good we don't want, that's not good. There's many things that we could talk about. Why don't they focus on the policies themselves rather than on some very, very hard to decipher words that really don't mean anything in a video?
Well, hell, there's no doubt about it that Donald Trump wants to be a dictator. He's pretty much said he wants to, if anybody opposes him, he's going to fire them. He's not going to listen to, the Justice Department. He's going to get his own guy in there. And if they don't agree with him, he's going to fire them. So he wants total control of everything. I don't think there's any question about that. So there's a similarity maybe between, Hitler and other fascists and Donald Trump.
But Arlen, people want, Americans right now are focused more, and you even said it, you don't quite get it, but they're more focused on jobs. They're more focused on just having enough to retire and not be homeless, not have to go live with relatives. That's where people are right now. And the Democrats aren't offering them anything.
What the Democrats should be telling the voters, and everybody should be telling the voters, is that, we're in dangerous possibilities of having a dictator in office who will pretty much take control of everything. And, if that has to be...
we so disagree. Shouldn't the Democrats be saying, hey, we're going to fight to bring back good jobs to this country. We're going to stand up for you against the big pharmaceutical companies that are robbing you blind. We're going to make sure that your kid can go to college without you having to take on crushing debt. We're going to bring our troops home from these billion-dollar wars that are only making a few corporations and their top managers super rich and leading to death and destruction all over the world. That seems to me what the Democratic message should be.
Yeah, if AOC was the president, that would be the message. But Joe Biden is too old, he's too establishment.
But why do you even say that would be AOC's message? She voted for Hakeem Jeffries, who's the Congress member from Wall Street, AIPAC, and the pharmaceutical lobby. I don't know why you would think she's some sort of a heroine. She has never shown.
She wants to be a part of the party. She wants to be a part of the Democratic Party, and she wouldn't be if she voted against all the leaders and against everything.
Well, that's the problem. Then she needs to leave. That's the whole point. And I talked to a Green Party guy, and he said they reached out to her, and she refused to even talk to them about becoming a green. And her fundraising, she's giving money to centrist Dems. She's consolidating the power of the corporate elites and the military establishment in the Democratic Party by her actions.
She knows that the only way we're going to get any kind of progressive movement is going to be within the Democratic Party. Third parties aren't doing it. If she wants to kick herself out of the Democratic Party and go to herself, she's not going to get anywhere.
But we're not getting but from what she's doing isn't working, Ronald. That's the problem.
No,
it's clearly not working. It's not. We're not moving forward. She's not taking the Democratic Party to a better place. And in fact, the Democratic Party has not taken us to a better place. The Democratic Party is a huge part of the problem.
Well, I agree with you, Hal, but AOC can't do it herself. There's just no way that one person like her is going to do it. But she has to get in there and build a movement if she can. And maybe after this election there'll be a chance to do that. But she wants to be part of the Democratic Party and build it into a progressive party.
But why would you want to be part of the Democratic Party then? If you're a real progressive, why would you want to be part of a party that embraces AIPAC, that embraces military, embraces weapons manufacturers, that within 1 week after the president announces a halt in weapon shipments to Israel, then starts them up again? So why would you want to be part of that party?
She doesn't want to be a part of that kind of a party. She wants to build her own party with progressive views. Well,
then build a party by leaving the Democrats and build one that, and if you can't, then at least you tried. At least you tried. But you see, by you're even championing her, you're showing that her actions are hurting our nation, because you can use her and leverage her and say, see, there's some good people in the Democratic Party like AOC. It's not, we shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We have these really good squad members, but that they actually provide cover for empire, for corporate elitists.
Tell me about a third-party candidate who's ever, made a difference in this country. It doesn't happen right now.
That's false, Arlen. The Republican Party was a third party, and the Republican Party defeated the South, the Confederacy.
Well, I'm talking about in modern times, Hal. Right now we've only got two parties and they control everything. She wants to make the Democratic Party, think more like she is, have more people that have her kinds of beliefs. And if she goes outside the party, it's not going to happen. People won't even pay attention to her if she goes outside the party.
Well, I don't agree with that, because people pay attention to Bernie, and he runs as an independent, and she's now an elected. She has a power base that's somewhat outside the Democratic Party. Now, you may be right. I don't disagree. Let me say it this way. I concede that it may well be the case that even if there was an AOC departure, Dem exit, I concede that might not do anything. It might not change anything. But what we're doing now isn't working. So it is time for a plan B.
Well, I like to believe that she's thinking of the future. She knows it's not going to happen tomorrow or the next day. But if she works, if she tries to get other people to go along with her, then, maybe something like that could happen. It depends on the results of this next election. If the Democrats do real poorly, they're going to realize they're going to have to make some major changes, and I hope they do.
Well, the changes they've made so far have been to move towards Israel, to move towards corporatism.
I agree with you. I'm not happy
with it.
I'm not happy with
Joe Biden. And I understand what you're saying. I get your point. Well, third parties don't work, and, we have to wait, and we have to this. And I understand all that. But here's my response to that. We don't have time to wait. We're burning our planet up. We're engaged in a genocide right now. These aren't issues that we can sort of put on the back burner and say, well, it's not great, but, in 2 years, we can turn things around. No, we can't turn things around. They're already beyond the point of recovery. The only question we can ask ourselves is how much more damage is there going to be unleashed on the planet and on the people who live on it.
Yeah, the Democratic Party is in pretty bad shape. Their policies are pretty bad. but there's nobody, Joe Biden's not going to be there to take over the party in the future. There's going to be somebody else. There's going to be other people. And we got to hope there'll be some progressive people that will make a difference and change some of these policies.
Well, I think that hope is vain. But let's play a little more. This is from CNN. And maybe we don't really need to. Well, I want to, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to jump forward because I want to get to the section with Bakari Sellers, who's the African-American gentleman in it. And he's going to talk about that video we just saw. So here's Sellers.
Yeah, and that's the thing, Kate. I mean, it's somewhat baked into the cake, the trafficking and racism, the trafficking and anti-Semitism. You have to call it out at this point in time because we're seeing this rise in anti-Semitism. And for the leader of one of the two major parties in the country to be using language like this, I think is really disturbing. I think the fact that that noise that we heard this morning on air was them backing the bus up over whatever intern that was. But there are other people who are responsible or should be responsible for those tweets going out. In fact, I think the former president himself bears all that responsibility.
All right. So, look, Trump uses a lot of really ugly rhetoric, and he definitely, traffics in right-wing tropes and the like. I get all that. But, Sellers' claim that it's baked into the cake that Trump is going to be a racist kind of runs up against the fact that Trump is doing pretty well among Black Americans. And here, this is from CBS News. Black voter support for Trump up from 4 to 23%. And this is supported by anecdotal evidence. A lot of, I don't know who it was. Maybe it was CBS News also. There was an article in the New York Times. They went down to Philadelphia, talked from New York. So I say down because Philly is south of New York. Went down there and talked to Black voters. And most of them said they're not going to vote for Biden. And some said they were going to vote for Trump. So wouldn't it behoove Bakari Sellers and CNN, rather than just calling Trump out as a racist, or say, okay, I think that it's fair to say, he's had some racist things. And certainly his claim that Barack Obama wasn't born in the United States was a pretty obvious appeal, in my opinion, to racists. But wouldn't it behoove CNN and the media to say, okay, this guy, he says a lot of things that are pretty ugly. He said things that could certainly fairly be called racist. And if not racist, certainly are appeals to racists. How come so many Blacks support him? What is it about his policies, or what is it about the Democrats that have caused Blacks to abandon the party? And what does the Democrat Party need to do differently to get them back?
Well, probably a lot of those Black people don't understand his history. He's got a whole history, his whole life.
Oh, they don't care about history. They want jobs. They want health care. They want a safe place to live. They don't care about those other things.
Well, yeah, but I think they're doing it. They're moving toward Trump for economic reasons. They're not happy with the way conditions are. Who can blame them? But I think by November, they're going to realize that, the option of having somebody like, MAGA Republicans in there, it's not going to be good for Black people or any minorities. There's going to be a lot of racism. There's a lot of racism within big parts of the MAGA movement. And, we got to watch out for that and make sure that doesn't continue.
All right, I'm going to say something that's going to amaze you, Orlin. I think you're right. You're right. I'll tell you what I think you're right about. I think a lot of the support that we're seeing in polls is going to, for Trump, is going to disappear. I do. I really think that's correct. I don't think he's going to keep that. I just maybe he'll do better. Trump will do a little better than he has, but I can't see it. I think he's, in the end, Biden will get most of those votes will come back to Biden. I agree with that. Here's a guy who's very afraid of Biden losing. And we've played Maher before. So let's see what you think about this, Orlin, because I wonder whether you see it the way I do. I'm not a fan of Bill Maher. I know you enjoy him more than I do, but sometimes he says things that are interesting. And this is one of them. So here we go.
And now it seems like the consensus is almost Biden can't win. And he is losing in all the swing states, I think, except Wisconsin, and by bigger and bigger numbers. Is it too late to switch out? If the Democrats are going to do it, what?
Well, just thinking, is it too late? Probably.
She's sort of strange, her voice. Like, I couldn't really say, Did you understand what she was saying? I think she said it's not too late, but it's hard to understand that woman.
I don't know, but I think Bill Maher is not being realistic. It is too late to change Biden. I mean, somebody who came on now just wouldn't be on every ballot. It would be a total mess. So Democrats are stuck with Biden. They just have to improve their message and make the better case for him, because so far they're not. The Republicans are making a far better case for Trump, who doesn't deserve it, than the Democrats are making for Biden.
Well, what's the case for? I haven't heard much of. I don't know if I agree with you there, Arlen. What's the case that Republicans are making for Trump?
Well, like I say, the economy is actually doing well objectively. It's better than any others in Europe. The numbers are really good. He's got a lot that he could point to, but it's not coming through. And people are more centered on what's going on with Trump and what he's saying, and not even realizing just how bad some of the things he is saying.
So do you agree with me then that the Democrats, because you said the Republicans are making a better case for Trump, do you agree with me that the Democrats are making a mistake focusing in on that, pretty much meaningless little social media video that isn't even as bad as they try to present it? Is that a mistake? Is that poor campaigning by them?
I think they're trying to point out some of the extremism in Trump and his movement, and if you focus on that, that's no big deal. But if you take it in the context of all the other things, well, maybe it is. The Republicans have gone with some of the real right-wing anti-Semites and allowed them in parts of the party. Trump has been very tolerant of those kind of people, and so that that should be listened to. But on this particular one, it's not a big deal. It's just one person.
If the problem though is, as I've said, that we just said black voters and other voters are more white working class voters are more concerned about their own circumstances because their circumstances aren't great, then shouldn't that be where the Democrats focus? This is how we're going to work to make your lives better. This is how we're going to try to make society a little better.
I think they're trying, but they're not doing a good job of getting it out there. Because I think, first of all, Trump pretty much empties out the room. I mean, he doesn't leave much room for anybody to say anything else, or all the focus is going to be on Trump all the time because he says the most outrageous and crazy things, and he's always in the news every second of the day. But the Democrats have to break in there somehow and make their case a lot better than they're doing now.
All right, let's. You said that it's too late to replace Biden, and I agree with that. But let's hear a counterpoint from the Hill team here. Here we go.
Biden won by such slim margins in a number of states. He won by 0.31% in Arizona, 0.63% in Wisconsin, a little over 1% in Pennsylvania, a little under 3% in Minnesota, and on and on, Michigan rather, and on and on and on. And he looks at an electoral map and says, this is what happens if Biden loses just Arizona, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. It's Trump who gets to 273 and wins the election. We're talking about a hair's breadth of opportunity here for Joe Biden to claim this election. And I don't think it's wrong for Bill Maher to be asking the question of whether or not his loss is inevitable, and that consequently, even if it's a big risk to switch him out at this stage, it's better than basically having a guaranteed loss.
It's starting to feel.
All right, so let me just stop it there. She was, kind of giving the result 2020 and using how close that election was in the battleground states. And, now Trump is leading in these battleground states. So therefore, we're better off rolling the dice because we're going to lose with Biden. Your response to that?
Well, obviously, we really have two candidates right now, Donald Trump and Joe Biden, who are really unpopular overall with the American people. People don't want this kind of election. We've had it before. These are two old people. Biden is not a strong candidate for the Democrats. He's getting too old and feeble and certainly not strong enough. Trump is getting crazier and crazier and showing signs of dementia, in my opinion. So, but it's too late. We are stuck with Biden and Trump. One of those is going to be our president, and whether we like it or not. So I'd much rather have it be Biden than Trump, obviously.
All right, click Halitics bottom right of your screen if you're not a subscriber. Got some new subscribers in the past 48 hours. Very happy about that. Just a little more from this video. The point Brianna Joy Gray makes is, hey, if it's inevitable that Biden is going to lose to Trump, then we should go in a different direction. And here's the response from Robbie Suave.
Feel inevitable. Nate Silver keeps pointing out that people to feel inevitable. Nate Silver.
So he says it's beginning to feel inevitable. It's kind of a throwaway that he says it, but she says if it's inevitable, and then he says it's beginning to feel inevitable, and then he goes into some more analysis. Arlen, you're shaking your head. I assume you do not think it's inevitable that Trump is going to win.
Oh, no, definitely not. But, the Democrats are going to have to do something different because whatever they're doing now is not working. And, people are going to have to start pointing out just how dangerous, Trump really is. And the mainstream media is not doing it. I mean, there's so many things that we could point to, how dangerous that Trump could be and his movement can be. And, the Democrats have to make a stronger case.
Yeah, I don't think it's inevitable at all. I mean, I just reject that wholesale. I'm not a fan of Trump's. I think what you hear in the comments by Bill Maher, by Robbie Suave, by Brianna Joy Gray, frankly, is a bit of wishful thinking. They don't like Joe Biden for various reasons. Bill Maher doesn't like Joe Biden. Bill Maher, I think, feels that Joe Biden isn't staunch enough a supporter of Israel. Bill Maher wants Joe Biden to be more aggressive, taking on the right, the students who he really, really dislikes. Bill Maher's an elitist. Bill Maher's an insensitive jackass. And Joe Biden, to some extent, has shown compassion. I'm not saying he necessarily feels much, but he does show it every now and then. And Bill Maher doesn't like that. So Bill Maher would prefer to see a different Democrat. And Brianna Joy Gray, she's pretty hard left. She's like me. She doesn't like Joe Biden. She wants to send a message to the Democratic Party that unless you move far to the left, you're going to lose. And Robbie Suave is a libertarian. He doesn't like Joe Biden either. So that's why you're hearing it, because they're not looking at the facts on the ground. They want it to be the way they say it. But the reality is it's a dead heat. And if anything, Biden's kind of coming back. Yeah, you see that one poll there, Harvard-Harris, with this is national. We'll delve into the state level too a little bit, Arlen. But if you look at the Quinnipiac, which is a really good poll, has Biden ahead. The general election, yeah, Harvard-Harris is a crap poll. It's junk. They never write. So, I mean, they might get it right if they're lucky, but they don't get it right because they're good pollsters. So this is absurd. It is just not over by any means. It's not inevitable. It's none of those things. And here, I just want to show some more recent polls. Again, dead heat, tie. Trump won. It's not, we're 6 months out. It's absurd for them to be claiming that somehow Biden is sure to lose. And moreover, the polls are tightening up. So yes, as you said, Arlen, it's far, far from over. And would I prefer to be Trump? Maybe if I was running and I would prefer to be in his shoes. I don't know. I'm not sure about that.
Well, the important part is that Biden is unpopular. He's going to be unpopular, and he's not a great candidate. Donald Trump's not a great candidate for the Republicans either, but that's who we're stuck with. So, it's something that we really can't do much about at this point.
All right, I want to just show this last. This is the aggregation of polls by Real Clear Politics. Arlen, I know you're not a fan of RCP because they do lean right. You're absolutely correct. They do in their editorial policies, but I use them because they have all the polls, and I have no reason not to. Their numbers are, when they do the polls, are right, so it's not a problem for me. So yes, you look at that, oh my God, it's all over. It's Trump, he's going to win. Look at all that, 7 states. They're all in red. Okay, Biden needs to win Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan to win. He doesn't need Nevada. I thought he needed Nevada. He doesn't need Nevada. We'll get to Nevada in a second. Wisconsin, that shows Trump by 0.1. It's a tie, right? It's a tie. 0.1. Michigan, it's 1.0. That's when it's Biden versus Trump. But when it's Biden, Trump, and the others, it's basically the other way around. And Pennsylvania, the polls seem to be a little bit more problematic for Biden. But again, 6 months, everything could change. It's absurd to hang your hat on these polls and say it's over. I would make one other point. Nevada was a state where I talked about because there was one poll. New York Times said Trump was up by 13. The latest poll that came out, I think it was Quinnipiac, again, The Hill, also reputable, tie. So I think the New York Times poll was an outlier. They don't talk to that many people. You never know. It's just not plausible to think that Joe Biden hasn't got at least a third or better chance to win this election at this point.
I'll guarantee you, Al, the next few months, it's going to go back and forth, back and forth. The polls are going to change. There's no doubt about that. It's crazy that we even, pay this much attention to polls at this time. I mean, look at a country like Great Britain. They're going to have an election, but it's going to mean they've decided, hey, we're going to have this election and it's going to be over in 6 weeks. Or, that's it, six weeks. And, that's so different than it is in this country, where we just go on forever and ever. I think we're the only country that does anything like this.
I agree with you, Arlen. And, I'm guilty too, because I just showed all those polls. I'm going to make an excuse. My excuse is I was responding to others who are looking at the polls and coming to a conclusion, which I think is just simply unjustified. It's just simply not warranted by those numbers.
Well, you have to look at the polls. They are important, but they can't be overemphasized. They're not, at this point in the game, they're just not everything. So, you look at them and you get some ideas of how they're doing and then, make some changes. But, at this point, way too early to know what's going to happen in November.
All right, Arlen, I'm going to put you on the spot here. You have indicated several times that you think the Democrats need to, and if I'm mischaracterizing your position, please let me know. But my understanding is you believe the Democrats haven't done a good enough job explaining to the American public just how bad Donald Trump is, just how problematic he is. I'm going to ask you to do this. Rather than demonizing Trump as a human being, somebody who's a dictatorial, who's a pussy grabber, all those things that we know about Trump, what policy, if you could choose one policy that Donald Trump has embraced, do you think the Democrats should say, this policy Donald Trump is going to pursue, it's going to be terrible for the American people, and we will do just the opposite? And I'd also, if you can, taking Trump out of the equation, where would you say the Democrats should, what issue do you think the Democrats should campaign on? And I want those to be two different things. So you could say abortion. I'm going to give you that. I'm not saying that's what you choose. You could say, hey, the right to choose is on the ballot. You got to vote for us because Trump will take it away. Maybe that's true. Maybe that isn't. I don't know. But if you say that, then you got to come up with a second issue for the Democrats to campaign on.
Well, I think the most important issue, and I think a lot of people recognize it, is that Donald Trump could, it's a question of election between democracy and authoritarianism. Democracy is going to be in trouble if Donald Trump gets elected. I think a lot of people understand that. He's going to take so much power. He's going to, be in control of all facets of the government. Already, the Republicans own the courts and, in Congress.
But so you're not going to focus on a particular policy, like say tax policy. Like you could say Donald Trump will slash taxes on the wealthy, which will balloon the budget deficit, right? So that's why you should vote for Democrats, because that would be really bad. The rich already aren't paying enough, and we don't want to see the budget deficit explode. See, that's sort of where I was going for, not Trump is going to, take over and be an authoritarian.
Well, I think that's the most important thing that people have to understand and focus on, because there's a lot of issues, no doubt about it. And the Democrats could focus on this issue and that issue, but it's not going to make a big difference until you just look at the whole picture that Donald Trump is dangerous. That he could change this country in a way that, it's never been changed before. He could, threaten our democratic system of government. And that, to me, that's scary.
All right, is there any particular policy issue then that you would like to see the Democrats talk about that maybe they haven't talked about as much as you think they could?
Well, certainly they need to change their Gaza policy. That's just been horrendous, and that's been poor. So, And that's another issue they could focus on is foreign policy, because Donald Trump has been saying, hey, we're not going to support NATO countries, unless they pay up. And he's been nothing but friendly to, all the dictators around the world. He's said nothing but good things about Putin and Kim Jong-un and all the other authoritarians. So, I think that's a, real important thing. And, people don't want to have this country in a position where, where America won't defend the rest of the world. I mean, it's that part I think is a big one.
Arlen, isn't there a risk, though, for the Democrats to start talking about what Israel's doing in Gaza in more critical terms? I mean, we just saw in Oregon two less strong, two candidates who were critical, who have been critical of Israel, go down in flames. And that's a progressive state. We have seen AIPAC politicians, it's true, they haven't been able to unseat candidates like Ilhan Omar and Omer and Tlaib, and they haven't been able to unseat Cori Bush. But the squad hasn't been able to grow either. Summer Lee maintaining her seat, I believe. So that's good. I mean, I'm glad to the extent that they're better than the alternative. But isn't there a risk of, and I hate this fact, I hate it, but I just want to throw it out there. Isn't there a risk that you're going to alienate a very, very tight, loyal block of Jewish voters who generally always vote Democratic, but who might just throw up their hands and say, we have to vote for Israel. We vote for Israel first, and they'll go to Trump. So there's that fear. And there's also, I think, maybe a bigger fear if you're a Democrat. If you really do start talking about what Israel's doing, if you say, hey, Netanyahu just got indicted by the ICC, International Criminal Court, he's got to face the music. If you start saying things like that, then AIPAC will go scorched earth on the Democrats.
There's not much you can do about that, Hal. It's just a very complicated problem. You've got people on all sides of this issue. And the funny thing is, the Republicans are going to be even worse. They're going to support Israel no matter what Israel does. And Trump's a big supporter of Netanyahu. So, I don't know if there's any way out of it. It's just going to be a tough issue to get around. It's just very complicated. And there's so many, Americans on different sides of the issue, but we've got to do better than we're doing now.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, there's a real irony there that Biden is facing much more of a rebellion for his pro-Israel policies, which frankly aren't quite as bad as Trump's. And yet there's no internal dissent whatsoever in the Republican Party. So on that issue. So it is an irony. It's unfortunate. I do agree you have to do what's right. And in this case, supporting Israel the way we are is not what's right. I'm not optimistic, in terms of the long range prospects for this country or for the world, or even short range. But I think you are in the same place I am when it comes to this election. Maybe not. It's a toss-up. I mean, I just don't, like I said, if I look at these polls right now, I'd kind of rather be in Trump's shoes if I was running. If I was one or the other, I'd rather have the support he has, but I'm not even certain of that, Arlen. And I get, yes, maybe the polls are understating Trump's support, and Trump has tended to do better in polls has tended to do better than his polling on occasion. This is too close for me to think that, and there's too much negative news about Trump out. You think the news is too positive for him. I think it's just extraordinarily critical of him, with few exceptions.
Let me tell you about one thing I was thinking about in the Republican Party, and that is, the report that came out about, the FBI went into Florida to get the classified documents, and they said that they could use weapons. They'd be prepared for that. And the Republicans went crazy. Fox News and all those people went crazy. They said, and Marjorie Taylor Greene said that Biden's going to assassinate Trump, and they just went on and on with that. And in truth, the FBI plans were just like they are anywhere else when you have a search warrant. Of course, you're prepared to, defend it with weapons if you have to. But nobody ever obviously said that, Biden's going to shoot, Trump. But, a lot of people on the right thought that was the case.
Well, I mean, both sides believe the worst of the other side. And I agree that in general, I think the Republicans tend to be a little more demented and delusional than the Democrats.
No question.
But I do think there's plenty of delusion on the left side of the aisle too, and that's cost me when it comes to my audience. I mentioned I was really pleased with my performance in my Tuesday video, but I had that meme. I don't know if you saw it, or let me see if I have it up. I wasn't planning to share it, but let me share it now. I think this kind of meme offends everybody, and as a result, it cost me viewers. I did put this up on Facebook. I don't know if you have any quick reaction.
The steal is even crazier than Russia. Well, the whole thing about the steal, that's another thing that's, very crazy about the Republican Party. Trump is very much sticking by that. And now all the people that are supporting him are starting to, say the same thing, that the 2020 election was stolen. And, even though the facts are not there, that's what they want everybody to think. So, yeah, we're in bad shape. There's no question about it.
So I thought you were going to go with, and this is where I was with that. By the way, you're right. This is, and I was talking about policy, but I am really very, very, I don't want to say frightened exactly, because I'm really not that frightened that Trump would become a dictator if he takes over. I don't think that's going to happen. But I do think that what he tried to do before January 6th was terrible. He absolutely tried to pervert a democracy. He tried, to prevent the more popular candidate, the candidate who got more votes, and even in this convoluted, stupid electoral college system that we use, which is just wrong, and I think we both agree on that. It should just be whoever gets the most votes, one person, one vote, period. But however you do it, Joe Biden, the rules that were in place, he won. And there's no doubt about it. There's no evidence whatsoever that casts any doubt on that. And yet there's this, he's started this, myth, this lie, this big lie that somehow he was rooked out of an election he won. And that's terrible. It's just wrong. He should not, for that reason alone, unless there was someone even positive, if there's someone out there worse than Trump running, okay, well then I guess you don't vote at all. But where I thought you were going to go with this, so I say the steal is even crazier because there's zero evidence to support the steal. It's all made up. It's completely made up. And even the people they claim said supported it don't. The election wasn't stolen. Trump lost, period. The end of story. But I thought you would say, well, but Hal, you're saying Russiagate's crazy too. What's the matter with you? Don't you know Trump conspired, Trump colluded, the Russia controlled that, made that election. And you've said things, I'm kind of exaggerating, but a lot of people on the left believe that. And I concede there's some evidence, not very good evidence, not very credible evidence, but some evidence. That's why I define Russiagate again as Trump conspired with Putin. It's not Russia tried to put its thumb on the scale. It's none of that, or that Trump welcomed. The question for me is, was there any high-level coordination between Trump and Russia to try to push Trump ahead of Clinton in any way? And I say there wasn't. I just say there wasn't. I've seen no evidence to support that. So, yeah. But a lot of Democrats don't like the fact that I even question this.
Well, yeah, I think, a lot of people, I think there's no doubt about it that, Russia tried very hard and Trump used them to help them win. And by the way, I want to mention, you said something about you didn't think Trump would be that you're not scared of Trump being a dictator. I think he could be a lot worse than we think he is, because he's not going to have anybody to stop him. All the people around him believe in everything he says. He doesn't have anybody to prevent him from doing things. He's going to have people like Bannon and all those crazies telling him what he can do, and the Heritage Foundation. And, he could really take advantage of being elected and doing whatever he wants. And, certainly the courts are not going to prevent him. So
I think you're wrong there. I disagree with that. I think the courts would step in. I do think John Roberts, I think the two male justices that Trump appointed, Gorsuch and Kavanaugh, would not agree now to some kind of government takeover. And then you've got the Democratic judges as well. Yes, Alito. Yes, Thomas. Those are scary people. Amy Coney Barrett, I'm not sure about, but I wouldn't be surprised if she sided with Trump on some very unfortunate, on issues where he clearly is way over the bounds of what his powers, are. But I do think, maybe I'm wrong, I don't think John Roberts, I don't think Kavanaugh and Gorsuch, and I don't think any of the three Democratic justices would go along. So I think you have 6 justices who would say no to Trump. You have Congress. It doesn't appear that that the Republicans are going to win Congress.
We don't know.
So you have Congress as a bulwark against Trump. You also have the military. Generals are not fans of Trump. They're not going to support some kind of military takeover. Now, I don't really like the military. I think in some areas Trump is right and the generals are wrong. But that said, I don't see them going along with a government takeover.
Well, we don't want to go to those places. It sounds pretty darn scary. But I think maybe the worst thing of all, if Trump got elected, would be nominating judges and Supreme Court justices. I mean, certainly you'd have a lot of these older conservatives that would want to quit and retire and then let Trump appoint a young person who believes the same way. And, you got people like Cannon who are, doing his bidding, and all the ones that he's nominated.
Stephen Miller's a really scary guy, sort of like sort of an executioner style person. Trump's justices and judges haven't on balance been as bad as you might imagine. I asked the question, are Thomas and Alito the 2 worst justices ever? And I say yes, until you get to Roger Taney, the author of the infamous Dred Scott decision. I'm not saying Thomas and Alito wouldn't do something as bad as Dred Scott if they had the ability to do it, but they haven't, to my knowledge, ruled anything that's as awful as, an African American, a black man, a slave is not a human being and doesn't get to use the courts. So that Taney could be, the worst justice. But the 2 worst justices now in the court, and 2 of the worst ever, actually weren't Trump appointees. I mean, you have to blame the 2 Bushes for them. So.
Yeah, but right now you got 6 justices that are just ultra conservative, and it's not going to be good for a long, long time.
All right, our final word. We've exceeded the hour comfortably, and that's fine. So, any final words?
I just think it's scarier than you might think if Donald Trump got elected president. I think we would be very much heading toward a dictatorship, and democracy would, I think, be in danger.
All right. There you have it. Arlen's position. Trump is really dangerous. Are you prepared to be back on Monday? It's only going to give you a 3-day break there, Arlen. I mean, you had a long break on the other side, but now you got to get ready again quickly.
Yeah, I'm going to have a lot of work to do, but I think I could do it, Hal.
All right, I put him on the spot there because I didn't want him to think about it and then come back to me and say, no, I can't make it. Now you're locked in. I'm going to hold you to this. So this Monday with Arlen, by the way, better show with Arlen, and also easier for me. It's less prep, but let me tell you, a lot of prep, and this way there's less. That'll do it. Arlen, thank you. Have a great afternoon. It is afternoon where you are, actually, I believe.
Very much so, yes.
All right, and there it is.
All right, bye-bye.